important object-oriented programming principle, and as I said, we are already following it little, not completely. Okay, now let's talk about what is encapsulation. So encapsulation is nothing but it is the process of binding or encapsulating the code data and code together. So when I create a class, okay, so when I create a class, I do create it within a something called as class, right? I do create my complete code inside something called as class, right? So this is the one thing how I am not I am how Java is you doing encapsulation. It is doing the binding of the data, right? Data and whatever variables I have, whatever methods I have, all are binded together into something called as class, right? So that is one thing which is already by default Java is achieving that. That's the process of binding or encapsulation the data or and code together. And one more thing is encapsulation is used to hide the implementation detail. So if you remember, we talked about abstraction, and where I said abstraction is the process of hiding the implementation detail, and there are two kind of hiding implementation detail process. First one is data abstraction, and second one is process abstraction. So process abstraction is something like, okay, I don't want to implement my methods, right? That's what process abstraction is. So those method we declare it as a abstract. Okay, so if I go to my if I go to abstract demo abs1, okay, so this, if I talk about this abs1, so in abs1 class I have created some methods. So this kind of methods are my abstract method. I don't provide any implementation detail. So these kind of methods, so this abstraction is called as uh, process abstraction, right? I am abstracting the process, I'm abstracting the method, process abstraction. And another abstraction what I mentioned there was data abstraction. Okay, so data abstraction means, so here I am abstracting the process, right? I'm not letting the process to anyone know, right? Now what is data abstraction? I don't want to reveal my data, right? So I want to hide my implementation detail with regards to data, right? And how it is achieved, we'll see that. Okay, so it is the fully encapsulated class is created by making all the data member of the class as a private and use setter and getter method to get and set data in it. Okay, so I might have talked this earlier as well. Let me create one class quickly. So like so till now we are just creating the variables as public. Okay, but okay, and let you tell frankly, in Java, when we create test automation framework or in your testing using Selenium, we will not be creating this kind of encapsulated class, because as I said, this is not going to be front facing application that okay, many users are using it and there are chances of hacking and all. There are no chances, right? It is going to be within my organization and with for that specific project only, so only couple of users, right? Including me, right? So I'm not going to use this encapsulation using getters and setter methods, because unnecessary that will make my code little complicated. But yes, that's a very good feature basically Java coders use for coding the application. We should be aware since it is a object oriented programming concept. Okay, so let us start talking about encapsulation. Data abstraction. Okay, so I have created this class encapsulation data abstraction demo. Okay, and now normally what we do is, if I want to create some variable, what we do is we simply define int, let us say age is equal to 25, and then we define, let us say, some string, name is equal to some name. Okay, and now if I want to, or maybe what we do is we simply define the variables over here. Okay, and then we can access them through the constructor. Okay, so what we can do is instead of using variables like this, okay, so instead of using variables like this, we can create them as a private variable, right? So that they shouldn't be accessed from, so when I make it as a private, so we'll see what are the different access modifiers in next few minutes. Okay, but for now you can just understand, okay, private means they cannot be accessed from outside the class. Okay, only accessible within the class. Now, if it is accessible only within the class, how can I set the data into that variable, or how I can read the data from that variable, right? So to set the data and to read the data from external world, we can create getters and setter method. Okay, so if I just select these whatever variables I want to work with, create getters and setters for, I can just select them and I can go to source, and then here I find something called as generate getters and setters. Okay, I'll simply click on that, and now it asks me for which variables you want to create getters and setters. I want to create it for both age and name. So here you can uncheck. So for example, I want I just want this particular class as a read only class. What that mean? I just want to read the data. So if I just want to read the data, I will just create a get method over there, not a set method, right? So that now, for example, if you just want to make this class as a read only or write only, so if you just want to make it as a read only, you can just create a getter and only getters. Setter is not required because you want to make it as a read only. So I'll just create getters. If you want to make write only, then you can create set only. You can have only set, right? If you want both, you can select both. Okay. Now I have just selected all, and I'll click on OK. And you see now it has created getters and setters for me. Okay, let me make this on the top. Okay, now you see it has created four methods: uh, get age, set age, get name, and set name, right? And in the set name you see something called as this dot age, right? This dot name, right? So here, because the variable name of my local variable, that is name, basically the name of my local variable and instance variable is same. So in order to tell okay which is my instance variable and which is my local variable, we use this keyword, right? Now fine. Now how to get and set the data? Okay, let me create a main method. Main. Okay. So in the main method, what I'll do is I'll create the object of this class. Fine. Now if I want to set the value, and if I want to access the value from these variables, what I am going to do is, if I want to set the values, I am going to use d dot set name. Okay, and I'll set the name as John. Fine. And now d dot set, because those methods which we have already created, we call them as a getters and setters. Set age as 25. Now I'm done with the setting. That is, by using this variable, you can simply say okay, I have assigned the variable, I have assigned the values to the variables. Okay, so since this is of type int, it is not accepting string. Fine. Now setting is done. Now if I want to retrieve the value, how I can retrieve? I'm just going to print it. My name is and how to retrieve the value? D dot, we have getter method, get age. It is going to give me the age. Okay, and let me copy the same, and my age is, sorry, it should be get name, and my age is this. Okay, so now if I execute it, what will happen is, whenever this specific statement get executed, d dot set name, it will go to this particular setter, and then it will assign, it will get the value as John over here. Then it will assign this John value to the instance variable which is on the top. Right now my instance variable will be having value as John. Fine. Now the next statement, similarly for set age, my instance variable will get value as 25. Right. Now my next statement is get name. So get name is, it will refer, it will return simply you the name. Right. Where is this name? That's the value of my instance variable. Right. So this is a, basically instead of dealing directly with the variable, uh, we are creating some methods like getters and setters to deal with the variable, to interact with those private variables, right? So this is how we achieve the encapsulation. Now you see whatever value I set, I am able to retrieve the value. That means I was able to set the value in this private variables, right? So this is how we achieve the encapsulation. So fully encapsulated class is created by making all the data member as a class private. That's what we did. We created both data member as a private and use getters and setter method to set and get the data. So we created 4 different setters and getter methods for these 2 variables to deal with the data, to interact with the data, right? So here you see I have set the data and I have get the data, right? So that's pretty simple. So the encapsulation can be achieved using 3 keywords in Java, so that we are going to talk in access modifiers. Okay.